So can you tell me about some sources of freely available statistical and geospatial data?
At the moment, most open access data is coming from government open data initiatives and from nonprofit organizations. There's been a real push to get more government information released openly in an open and accessible format, and more governments are complying. Statistics Canada data is now mostly released under an open license. At a municipal level as well, the City of Windsor has released some data. Other cities have gone much further. Oddly, the provinces are one real gap. I haven't seen much change there. With nonprofit and intergovernmental organizations, there's also been a real push towards accountability. People want to see how donated money is being spent, what effect it's having. So internationally, it's very exciting to see how much data is becoming available and open on developing countries as a result. The lack of data used to be a real barrier to research, but now anyone with the skills can go and download high-quality data from places like the UN and the World Bank and see what kind of progress is being made in all sorts of areas.
So how is it at the Academic Data Center here that you help students find this kind of information? And as I guess a librarian, we kind of know what the answer to that is, but I think a lot of people may not have a good sense of what role we play in facilitating that sometimes.
Well, it's basically what we do is what all librarians do. We sit here and answer questions. We take questions by email. We put up web pages that list all of the more frequently accessed sources, the things people are asking for. With data, however, there's a further step. We also help with analysis. With open articles, say, which I know you're really involved with, you lead the student to the article, but then you kind of hope that they're able to read it on their own. With data, that's not always the case. Once you find the data, you need special software to open it, you need statistical tools to analyze it, you may need help interpreting it. So we also help with the software, with analysis and methodology, even with programming if needed.
Okay. So you were mentioning at the beginning a little bit about some of the freely available sources of data, but I mean it's not always that easy, I guess. So what are some of the challenges with that still exist to accessing data?
Well, for one thing, not everything can be made open. There are privacy and legal concerns. When you talk about open access, you may want government data to be available, but think about what governments have. Not everyone really wants their tax returns or their patron borrowing records to become open. And I've found that also municipalities are happy to release data showing things like the locations of dog parks and golf courses and so on, and that's great. But when it comes to data that would let you really analyze what's going on at a social level in vulnerable communities, suddenly there's much less interest. Or say corporations, really localized records showing who's releasing what pollutants, there are barriers. So far, the open data movement has been most successful at what I would call the dog park level. Our federal government has tried to act like a leader in open data by releasing a lot of material, but they've also been muzzling federal scientists and have canceled many important data collection programs. So open data can't only be about getting governments to release data. We also have to think about what's being collected.
That's true. Another thing that is getting a lot of attention right now is around open data is open research data. And I know this is rather new, but can you tell me a little bit about that and what's going on there?
Open research data progress is somewhat slow. You'll hear a lot about the technical barriers, big data. The library is actually trying to set up a program to work with archiving big data with our researchers, but the issue we've been having is actually with some of the researchers themselves. Researchers are happy to let others have access to their articles and books and so on. Sharing products of the research, that's great. But research data is also an input to research. When a researcher spent a lot of time and money going around collecting data on something, they may be somewhat reluctant to let other researchers add it before they're fully finished analyzing it and getting everything they can get out of it themselves. They don't want to be scooped.
Yeah, that's true.
With medical data and other data on people, there are again ethical concerns and so on, human subjects, research, all sorts of issues there. But even getting researchers to release physical or chemistry data, data on fish counts, is a real problem. It's an interesting initiative. Dataverse is a software project coming out of Harvard, and it's an open source software project, so open source for open data, really cool. We've got our own Dataverse implementation, and I'm talking with some researchers about getting some data hosted there. So far, all that I've got up is a bit of government data that we couldn't really find anywhere else to put, and some graduate student data. I'm hoping that eventually we will be able to get more people to share their data with me so that we can host it openly.
Well, thank you very much.